There's a question you've probably kept to yourself for years, a quiet curiosity you've never said out loud, why you feel closer to animals than to most people, why you trust them more easily, why being near them feels calming in a way human relationships rarely do, why their presence feels like home even on days when nothing else does. And here's the truth almost no one talks about. Animals feel safe in a way people often don't, because with them you don't have to perform, you don't have to pretend. You don't have to explain why you're quiet or tired or guarded. You don't have to hide your softness, your sensitivity, your exhaustion, or your hurt. You simply exist and they stay. But what you might not realize is that there is a deeper psychological reason behind all of this. A reason that has nothing to do with being antisocial or strange or emotionally fragile, but everything to do with how your nervous system, your attachment style, and your emotional history were shaped long before you understood any of it. Humans connect through ego, through expectation, through social rules and spoken words. Animals connect through energy, through presence, through instinct. And maybe that's exactly what your heart has been craving all along: connection without pressure, understanding without language, companionship without performance. Think about it. Humans listen with their ears, but animals listen with their being. They feel the tremble in your hands, the shift in your breathing, the heaviness in your silence. They don't misunderstand your tone. They don't assume the worst. They don't hold grudges or weaponize your vulnerability. They simply sense you, the real you, not the version of yourself you've had to build to survive in a world that sometimes demands too much. And if you grew up in an environment where emotions were unpredictable, or where love came with conditions, or where your sensitivity was misunderstood, then animals may have become the safest place to land. Attachment theory explains this perfectly. When humans fail to offer warmth, stability, or emotional safety, the nervous system looks for connection elsewhere, somewhere steady, predictable, and honest. Animals often become that attachment figure, not because you consciously chose them, but because they met needs you didn't know how to name. Maybe that's why your entire body relaxes around them. Your heartbeat steadies, your breathing softens, your mind stops racing, your defenses melt. They regulate you in the same way secure human relationships are supposed to. This is why people who feel safe with animals are often misunderstood by others. They get labeled as distant or too sensitive or too independent or too selective with who they let in, but the truth is they are not difficult, they are discerning. You've learned the difference between connection that drains you and connection that nourishes you. Animals nourish you not because they're perfect, but because they never ask you to be anything other than who you already are. And here's the fascinating psychological part. When you're with an animal, your mirror neurons activate the same way they do in deep, safe human bonds. You feel understood because they reflect emotional truth, not social expectation. You feel grounded because their presence anchors your nervous system. You feel seen because they tune into your energy, not your image. Humans often talk to respond. Animals connect to feel. Humans often love with conditions. Animals love with presence. Humans often read your words. Animals read your heart. But let's go even deeper. The reason you feel closer to animals isn't because you dislike people. It's because you long for a kind of connection that feels safe, simple, honest, and rare. Animals give you a version of love you never had to earn, a love without conditions, without performance, without fear. They don't ask you to change before they accept you. They don't care about your past. They don't judge your emotions or mistakes. They accept you exactly as you are, and that level of acceptance touches something in you that the world often overlooks. People who feel emotionally safe with animals tend to be more empathetic, more intuitive, more self-aware, more emotionally intelligent, and more connected to the quiet truths of life. You're not the type to bond with superficial energy. You bond with sincerity, warmth, presence, authenticity, all qualities animals live in by default. They don't fake emotions. They don't pretend. They don't manipulate affection. They don't hide their needs. They simply show up as themselves, and in doing so, they give you permission to be yourself too. Maybe that's why the bond feels almost spiritual. In their eyes, you remember your softness. In their presence, you feel your humanity return. In their energy, you rediscover parts of yourself you didn't know you'd lost. So let's circle back to the question, why do you feel closer to animals than to most people? Because with animals you are free. Free from performing, free from judgment, free from expectations, free from the noise and pressure of human relationships. Because they connect with your soul, not your surface, because they offer the kind of love the world sometimes forgets how to give. And maybe the most healing truth of all is this: you're not strange for loving animals deeply. You're not broken for trusting them more than people. You're not too sensitive. You're someone who recognizes real connection when you feel it. You're someone whose heart is honest. You're someone who values presence over pretense. And that makes you rare, beautiful, and deeply human. The bond you feel with animals is not a weakness, it is a strength, proof of your capacity for empathy, loyalty, and unconditional love. And the next time you feel closest to an animal, remember this: they feel close to you too. If this message spoke to something inside you, hit subscribe to the Known Sense, because here, we don't just talk about psychology, we explain the parts of yourself you've never had words for.